Why does missing just a few hours of sleep change how your brain, metabolism, and even your emotions work the next day? And why do these effects build faster than most people expect? Sleep does not feel urgent in the moment. You can stay awake, push through fatigue, and still function. But inside the body, sleep is when critical systems reset. The brain clears waste, hormones rebalance, the immune system prepares. Because over time, sleep loss doesn't just make you tired, it changes how your body functions. So what is actually happening inside the brain when sleep gets cut short? During the day, brain cells produce byproducts as they generate energy and communicate with each other. One of these byproducts is a protein called beta amyloid. In healthy sleep, the brain activates a system that clears this waste. During deeper sleep stages, the spaces between brain cells expand slightly, allowing fluid to move through brain tissue and carry these proteins away. In simple terms, sleep is when the brain cleans itself. This system works best during deep sleep, the stages the brain only reaches after enough time has passed. When sleep is cut short, the brain may never stay in those stages long enough for the process to fully complete. The fluid still moves, but not as far and not as effectively. What this means is the brain is still cleaning, just not completely. Studies have shown that even a single night of reduced sleep can increase measurable levels of these waste products in the brain. Not after weeks, not after months, after one night. And that raises an important question. If this begins immediately, what happens when it repeats? But the brain is only the beginning. Sleep also controls how the body regulates hunger, and the mechanism behind it explains why sleep-deprived people often eat more without realizing why. Two key hormones are involved. Leptin signals that the body has enough energy stored, while ghrelin signals hunger. When sleep is reduced, leptin levels fall while ghrelin levels rise. In simple terms, the body becomes more likely to feel hungry. But not just for any food. Sleep-deprived individuals tend to crave foods high in sugar and refined carbohydrates. This is not a willpower problem. It is a biological shift. The body is trying to compensate for reduced energy by seeking quick fuel. What this means is that sleep loss can quietly influence eating behavior without a person even noticing it. And those changes do not stop there. They move directly into metabolism. Insulin is the hormone responsible for moving glucose from the bloodstream into cells. When insulin sensitivity is high, this process works efficiently. But when sleep is reduced, insulin sensitivity begins to decline. Glucose remains in the bloodstream longer, and cells respond more slowly. In simple terms, the body becomes less efficient at handling sugar. Some studies have shown that just a few nights of short sleep can produce changes similar to early metabolic dysfunction. But here is what makes this more surprising. These changes can begin even when calorie intake does not increase. In other words, the body is shifting internally before behavior changes at all. Then there are the effects most people feel immediately. Cognitive performance. The brain depends on coordinated communication between different regions to function efficiently. When sleep is reduced, that coordination weakens, reaction time slows, attention decreases, memory becomes less reliable. In simple terms, the brain is still working, but not at full capacity. Part of the reason memory suffers is because sleep is when the brain consolidates what it has learned. During deep sleep, the brain strengthens new memories and moves them into long-term storage. When that process is interrupted, information that felt clear during the day begins to fade. What this means is that learning still happens, but it does not fully stick. But there is another layer that goes even deeper: emotion. Inside the brain, a structure called the amygdala processes emotional responses like stress and fear. Normally, the prefrontal cortex helps regulate this activity. When sleep is reduced, that connection weakens. The amygdala becomes more reactive. In simple terms, emotional responses become stronger and harder to control. People often feel more irritable, more anxious, and more reactive after poor sleep, not because of what is happening around them, but because of what is happening inside the brain. But here's where everything starts to connect. When sleep is lost, these systems don't just change individually. They begin reinforcing each other, and that shift spreads beyond the brain. The immune system is one of the next systems affected. During sleep, the body produces signaling molecules that help coordinate immune responses. These signals help immune cells detect and respond to threats. When sleep is shortened, production of some of these signals decreases. In simple terms, the body becomes less prepared to defend itself. One way to understand the scale of this effect, in studies where participants were deliberately exposed to a cold virus, those sleeping fewer than 6 hours per night were significantly more likely to get infected than those sleeping 7 or more hours. The same exposure, a very different outcome. This does not happen instantly, but over time, the immune system becomes less effective and less able to recover quickly when it is challenged. The cardiovascular system is also affected. During normal sleep, heart rate and blood pressure drop, giving the body time to recover. When sleep is reduced, that recovery window becomes shorter. The body stays in a more activated state for longer. In simple terms, the heart does not get as much rest. Over time, this creates additional strain on the system. And there is one more system that quietly makes everything worse: the stress system. Cortisol is the body's primary stress hormone. Under normal conditions, it follows a predictable rhythm. It rises in the morning to help the body wake up, peaks in the early part of the day to support alertness and energy, and then gradually falls throughout the afternoon and evening. By the time the body is ready for sleep, cortisol should be at its lowest. But when sleep is reduced, this rhythm is disrupted. Cortisol can remain elevated at times when it should be declining, keeping the brain and body in a state of alertness when they should be winding down. In simple terms, the body stays in a mild but constant state of stress. An elevated cortisol does not stay isolated. It amplifies everything. It worsens insulin sensitivity. It suppresses immune function. It increases inflammation. It makes emotional regulation harder. What this means is that sleep loss does not just affect individual systems. It creates a feedback loop. Poor sleep raises cortisol. Elevated cortisol makes it harder to fall asleep the next night. And each cycle pushes the body further from recovery, making the next night of rest harder to achieve even when the opportunity is there. But here is the part most people never see coming. Most people who are sleep deprived believe they are functioning normally. They feel like they have adapted. They push through. And subjectively, it feels like it is working. But research shows something very different. Performance continues to decline, even as people report feeling fine. In simple terms, the brain becomes less aware of its own impairment. The more sleep-deprived someone becomes, the less accurately they can judge how impaired they actually are. This is one of the most counterintuitive effects of sleep loss. The body is still being affected, but the signal that something is wrong becomes weaker. So what actually happens when the body does not get enough sleep? The brain clears less waste. Hunger signals shift. Metabolism becomes less efficient. Focus and reaction time decline. Emotional responses grow stronger. The stress system activates. The immune system weakens. And the cardiovascular system loses recovery time. None of this happens all at once. It builds, quietly, gradually, across multiple systems at the same time. Sleep is not passive. It is when the body performs the maintenance that cannot happen any other way. Shortening it does not just create fatigue. It changes the conditions under which every system in the body operates. And those conditions do not stay still. They compound. Each night of lost sleep does not simply reset. It adds to what came before. And once that pattern continues long enough, the problem is no longer just feeling tired. It is that the body is no longer fully restoring itself at all.